What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Casual Wrestling Community Show. I am your host, the Notorious Nerdy D, and I am joined tonight by the co-host of this show, Level Up, Lauren.
What's up, y'all?
Each and every week, we talk about the best and worst in pro wrestling. Whether you are listening on podcast networks or watching on YouTube, make sure to like and leave a comment on this episode. As always, another 7 questions to answer tonight. But before we get to that, I got a little bit of clarification on something I was talking about a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And this was, I had mentioned that I felt like Raw was out of order. I felt like it was Bobby Lashley, AJ Styles, United States Championship was on in the second hour. And then in the third hour, we ended with Theory and Dolph Ziggler. And I said that didn't feel right. It felt like we had a main event and an encore. Well, Corey Graves came out in his podcast and talked about the importance of the 10 o'clock hour to WWE and how that is the highest viewed segment on Monday Night Raw. So I was actually correct in my assumptions. That's the main event. That's what's most important to WWE right now is that 10 o'clock hour. Everything that happens after that is kind of like icing on a cake.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to hear him speak and talk about that and to kind of get confirmation that I'm not crazy. That's when the most people are watching, they're going to put on, and it's almost like we're going to get 2 main events now. True. We're going to get the 10 o'clock main event, and it seemed like this week we got a better balance of that 10 o'clock main event and the third hour main event.
Yeah. So
I thought that was interesting. Worth talking about. Update on AEW Fight Forever. Gamescom started this week. It started today, and there was a playable demo of AEW Fight Forever that they were showing Colt Cabana play. It looks good. It looks like the Nintendo 64 stuff.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to be a fun game to pick up and play with friends. It's not going to, if you're like a wrestling simulation person, it's definitely not going to fill that scratch. It doesn't look like it's not, but it does look a lot like the Nintendo 64 games. And we kind of said from the beginning, if it was that, then it would be a fun and good game. Saw the graphics. The graphics are fine. The first video I saw, I kind of shit on the graphics, but the graphics are fine. There's nothing, it's not going to blow, like I said, nothing about this game is probably going to blow you away. But if you just wanted more of that Nintendo 64 type of gameplay, it's all there.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. Last thing I want to touch on from last week's show that I want to talk about is last week I talked about part-time wrestlers and John Cena. And that seemed to get a little bit of a reaction from people. People were a little bit upset that I said, I feel like the day of the part-timer is finished. And that doesn't mean I don't think that Brock Lesnar won't show up again. I don't think that The Rock may not come back for a one-off. What I'm talking about is the days of these 3-4 month runs from these part-timers where they come in, they win the title, we need them to save the company. I think those are done. But more importantly, I spoke about John Cena. And I said, I think Cena's done. I think Cena's done. And everybody pointed to, but he came back in Laredo and he told us all he had one more good run left in him. That's great. He can say what he wants. John Cena's 45 years old, okay? When you look at John Cena, his body is not the same body that he had when he was wrestling full-time. It's just fact. He has a Hollywood build now. He doesn't have a pro wrestling build. He doesn't have the power lifter build that he used to have. And let's be honest. The check that WWE has to write to get John Cena back for one night only, that's a big check because John Cena's making movies now. He's making television shows. And that's 3 months of filming, big fat check, and then you're done and you're on to the next thing. And don't get it twisted. Cena's doing a good enough job. There's always going to be another movie. Like The Rock. There's always going to... For Cena to come back to wrestling, and I think he will come back for one more match. I don't think there's another run in him. But for Cena to come back for wrestling, it's going to have to be because he wants to do it. It's not... You can't pay Cena enough money. The money you would have to give John Cena for a 3 to 6 month run, it doesn't make any sense. He's not going to generate that kind of money back to the company. So I think... Look, guys, you're not going to get a long run out of John Cena ever again. You're not getting another. He may come back, win a championship for a night, and then get rid of it just to set some kind of record. But he's not we're not getting a 6-month run. There's always going to be another television show. There's always going to be another movie. And every time he signs on a contract for a movie, and every time he signs on a contract for a new TV show, you know they're writing in there, no wrestling.
Yeah.
They don't want him. The liability's too big. The insurance, it's not worth the cost. The liability, it's not worth it to them to go, oh, no, sure, you could go wrestle while you're making this show. None of them are going to allow that. So it's wishful thinking. It's wishful thinking on fans' parts to think that we're ever getting a full run. 45 years old. CM Punk is around the same age, right? And he came back, broke his foot. You're brittle. When you're not in pro wrestling shape, guys like Sting stay ready. He stays ready. He'd be 60 years old and he can still do it. And he works a different kind of match and kind of schedule. Even though he's jumping off fucking ladders and shit. He's crazy.
An anomaly.
Yeah. But guys like John Cena who transform their body. He goes in and Hollywood tells him, you got to look like this. You're a little too big. You got to look like this. He definitely looks slimmer when he came back. He had smaller shoulders, a smaller frame. Guys like that, you can't just flip the switch and come back.
True. He
can't take the beating that he used to take. His body's it's not built for that anymore. So can we get John Cena for one night? Sure. We can get him for one night. We can probably get him for 2 or 3 nights. Mm-hmm. But there's no kind of long run left for John Cena. And I wanted to touch on that. Anybody who believes, I get what he said. And it's easy for Cena to come back, get emotional and go, I got one more in me. Yeah, until you had mentioned to me, like he's even begun to talk about having a family.
Yes.
He's paid his dues to the wrestling community.
He didn't do it for so long because he didn't want to disrupt his...
He's put those things to the side.
Schedule and stuff. I agree.
So look, if he decides to have a family, if he decides to keep making movies, decides to keep making television shows, at some point, John Cena doesn't owe us anything. He put in his time and put in his dues and gave us a hell of a career. He doesn't owe us another run. So if John Cena comes back, it's one of those things where he's going to have to forego money because they can't pay him what these big ass. He is literally the face of DC Comics right now because as fucked up as that world is, he is the one kind of bright light that exists inside that world that you could build around. That HBO show is kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
And he'll make other movies and he's going to do other things. And like The Rock, it'll snowball. And just like The Rock, to get him, like you can't get The Rock to come back for a lengthy run. I think the best they did was like January to April one year. They got him back. And it was like sporadic television via satellite performance. But I get it. Like he's busy and he can't wrestle every week.
Yeah.
We're never getting Cena wrestling every Monday ever again. That's not happening. He may come back and like I said, if they want to do the record thing with him, he may come back, win the title, do a 2 or 3 week thing. But even then, I don't know that means that much. I just don't, especially as we transition out of the Vince McMahon era and into the Triple H era. I don't know that Triple H, it seems like he's got so much, like he's got a plan. He's got so many things on his plate that like John Cena setting a record is not on that plate.
So I have a question real quick. Okay. So when Edge first came back, right before I was into wrestling, I was like, who is that old guy? I wonder if there's a group of like new wrestlers who don't know who John Cena is.
Wrestlers are like fans.
Sorry, wrestling fans.
I don't think so. He's not that far removed. It hasn't been that long. I mean, he was just back from Laredo, and then he was wrestling a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago.
When was the last time he like wrestled? I don't remember.
It wasn't long ago. I mean, it's not that long ago.
I remember watching him wrestle.
He had a little run. So yeah, it hasn't been. John Cena is not that far removed from wrestling, but he's on that precipice of like, he's a Hollywood. Like you can tell his body's different. Mm-hmm. You can tell his mental state is different. He wants to go make 3-month-long movies and television shows and get that big check. And nobody aspires to money. All the wrestlers who talk about, I don't want to go to Hollywood. I'll stay here forever. That's easy when you're young. Mm-hmm. When you're in your 20s, late 20s, early 30s, your body recovers so fast. When you hit 40 and you go, I can make a couple milli wrestling fucking 72 days a year. More than that, 150 days a year, right? I got to wrestle. Or I can go do a movie for 3 months and make what I was going to make all year. Yeah, I'm going to shoot the movie. I'm going to do I don't blame Roman for going, I mean, I could spend more time with my family. I can make all this money. I could be the next Rock. Not going to be the next Rock, but you know what I mean?
Yes.
I can make a couple $1 million a year shooting 3 movies. I'm going to do that. So I get the sentiment when these guys are young. Cena did it. I think Roman even kind of did it to Cena where they talk about, you're not here anymore. You're Mr. Hollywood. They all say that until Hollywood knocks on their door.
And they're like, hello.
And then they're like, yeah, no, I'll do it.
Okay, so coming out of commercial break on Monday Night Raw, Triple H snuck in the return of Johnny Gargano. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Gargano. There was no big tease or surprise whatsoever. What did you think of the subtle return of Johnny Gargano, and would you have preferred a bigger fanfare?
All right, so initially when it first happened, we came out of commercial break. I think Dexter Lumis had just kidnapped The Miz. Mm-hmm. So we were coming off of that whole fiasco. And we came out of commercial break, music hits, no warning, here he comes. And I thought, at first, initial reaction, as just a casual, that's lackluster, casual fan. Why is this? This should be a bigger deal. Bring him back to WWE, he needs fanfare. Dexter's getting all this attention. Dexter Lumis got this cool return. Why is Johnny Gargano not getting that? Bayley's crew got a big surprise at SummerSlam. Why is Johnny not getting that? But then he started talking. Once Johnny started talking, it sank into me. It made sense. Johnny Gargano's going to be a no-nonsense guy. He's not coming with a big gimmick. He's not coming to do comedy. He's coming to wrestle.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing. And the more I've let it sink in, I realize I became a hypocrite in the moment because I said, you can't have surprises every week. And then I go, well, why didn't they make him a surprise? This is a good way to introduce Johnny Wrestling. It's a good way to do it. No nonsense. Bring him in. To the casual fans, I don't know that he's super friendly. I know who he is from video games, a little bit of NXT, but I don't know that you have any idea who he is.
No, I knew who he was because we saw him when Indy Hartwell and
got
married.
Wedding, but that's kind of a one-off thing. We don't know him for what he's really. He's a big deal.
He's a new guy to me.
As far as like the IWC is concerned and the people who watch NXT, he's a big deal. So I don't know that sometimes when you try to make a big deal out of something that's not big to the casuals, it can go over awkwardly. I think this was the way to do it. He came back, you introduce him, they acknowledge that he in theory had history.
Yeah.
They kind of cut that off. Hey, he's not coming back for that. He's not coming back to be, I thought somehow he would be worked into the Dexter Lumis stuff. Cool. He's not part of that. He's his own thing. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the fact that Dexter Lumis is on his own path. Possibly a path. I don't know what Dexter Lumis's path is right now. I'm not sure. Like after
Jill.
I mean, that's so weirdly enough. And I only saw this because of TikTok. And this is the problem I talked about the other day with not watching NXT. Triple H is going to he's going to treat NXT like a third show, like an extension of the Raw and SmackDown brand. And now there are storylines bleeding through. And even if it was a tie-up of a storyline, it was still interesting to see that Dexter Lumis was arrested during NXT.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen it, Dexter Lumis returned to NXT, met Indy Hartwell in the ring, left with her, then proceeded to be arrested as he left her a letter that said goodbye for now. All of that happened on NXT. If you don't watch NXT, you have no fucking clue.
I agree.
And I wouldn't have a clue what that is. But yeah, as far as Johnny Gargano, I don't know if he is casual friendly. And when I start looking at Triple H, I wonder, some of these people he's bringing back, are they casual friendly? Is there a possibility? And I think people have said this. This isn't a new statement, but it resonates to me. Quickly, WWE is becoming NXT. We're seeing a slow transformation of certain guys get pushed, certain guys return. I've even heard rumors of like an NXT 3.0 kind of taking shape. But question I ask, is it possible that like Triple H goes too far at some point, brings back too many NXT stars and tips the balance when right now I think, like I said, Anakin Skywalker, the balance is there, right?
Yes.
But can you tip it? Can you bring back Gargano, Lumis, Io Sky, Dakota Kai, Hit Row, pushing Ciampa when not everybody's ready for Ciampa. Mm-hmm. At this point, like, I think we're good. I think it's okay if he brings back a couple more people in the style that he does with Gargano. I don't think we could keep casting aside our main roster to bring in all these NXT guys. But it does feel like we are seeing almost an NXT invasion. It's not an angle of invasion, but it does feel like if you haven't watched in a while and all of a sudden you turn the TV on, there's a lot of new faces on Raw and SmackDown. Yes. There's a lot of new faces that you may not recognize. The other question that I wanted to ask was, and this is in a situation with Johnny Gargano, could Johnny Gargano, I don't know if this is ever has a precedent, could he challenge Theory for the briefcase? Is that a possibility? Can you do that? I've heard people from time to time say they want somebody to win the briefcase off of Theory. I don't think it's likely. I think the more likely scenario here is, I think Triple H is slowing down the push of Theory. And I think there's a possibility that Theory could win the United States title back. Mm-hmm. And an interesting feud would be Theory and Gargano for the United States title. I think that's where Gargano goes first, is the United States title. And I think that if he gets a lengthy United States title run, it would be fun. And it would be a good introduction to the casual fans of who he is and what he's really about and how he's kind of no-nonsense wrestling and he's a real deal. Mm-hmm. He's in a way, he can be the next incarnation of Daniel Bryan. He can be that. Like, it's all the elements are there. He has personality. He can wrestle extremely well. He's likable. All of those elements are there. And Bobby Lashley, like, he's great right now as United States champion, but he doesn't need that belt. That belt doesn't do anything. Bobby Lashley's a spectacle in himself. True. He's a big man. He's believable against everyone from Brock Lesnar to Dolph Ziggler or to Theory to he can wrestle anybody. He doesn't need a belt to be relevant. So I think at some point, if it's Gargano wins it, if it's Theory wins it, that belt, we got to get that belt back onto a mid-card talent.
On tonight's AEW Dynamite, Jon Moxley squashed CM Punk and unified the AEW title. On a scale of 1 to 10, how surprised are you to hear that CM Punk went into business for himself and has lost favor with the AEW locker room and fans? Also, do you think that this was the correct way to book this title match?
So I'll get to the match in a minute because that's fresh and that's kind of still sitting in. I watched it about 30 minutes ago. How surprised am I that CM Punk went into business for himself? A 3 out of 10. 3 out of 10. And that's only because I thought he'd make it longer than this before he kind of was exposed for who he really is and being back into business for himself. We've seen signs in the past this is who CM Punk is. I don't know why anybody's fucking surprised. I don't know why we've painted him as savior. And I don't know why he doesn't need to be a savior. Pro wrestlers should be in business for themselves. It's not the wrestler's job. It's the company's job to keep these guys in check. And no matter what CM Punk has tried to like portray to us otherwise, this was always CM Punk's plan, was to come back and be the guy. But let's talk about first kind of the information that we've had on CM Punk. It's been in front of our face the entire time. And let's not pretend to be surprised that he might be an asshole, right? Now, we know he's been kind of cold and heartless to fans. That's not new. That's been known by a lot of people.
Yep.
His best friend sued him because he put him in a bad situation on a podcast. That's not new information. We've known this. We've known this about CM Punk. CM Punk felt entitled. He needed to be in WrestleMania. He should be the main event, even though at no point in time you can argue, I'll argue back, he was never the biggest thing in WWE. He was a big thing, but he was never the biggest thing. And at the point in time where he was possibly number 2, unfortunately for him, The Rock decided to get back into the business. And The Rock told him, The Rock tweeted at him, it's simple. It's simple business, CM Punk. The Rock is the main event of WrestleMania because The Rock draws more money in one night than CM Punk can draw in an entire year. I don't know if that's still true. CM Punk was a pretty big draw for a hot minute, but he's definitely cooled off after tonight. Let's talk about the fact that the only time CM Punk really became a mainstream star, and not an IWC darling, but a mainstream star where everybody was watching him, was when he started complaining about the company, when he started just airing grievances that were said online. He likes to talk about how, well, Twitter's not the real world, except that he got famous by just echoing Twitter sentiments. That's what he did. Everything that Twitter and the IWC were mad about is what he went on TV weekly and bitched and complained about. I enjoyed it though, so I'm not complaining there. Truth is, Punk peaked around 2011, around Money in the Bank, around the pipe bomb promo. And he was never the guy. Even in his biggest moments, it was still the Cena era. It was still the time of Cena. Now he's 43 years old, okay? And he came back and he took the spot of younger guys despite the IWC continuously telling me when I talked about him, just wait, he's here to put these young guys over. It's what he's going to do. He's here. He's here. You got to wait. You got to wait, D. You got to wait and watch because he's here. He's going to put these young fans over. He's going to put these young talent over, and that's what he's back to do. It's not what he was back to go into business for himself. It was the plan the entire time. Everything that he hated about guys like The Rock and the guys who came back, everything he ever talked shit about is what he became. He became a guy who came back and took the spotlight away from the young guys. He didn't come back to put people over. Who was he put over? Who was he really put over? Like, and not just telling me, oh, he got eyeballs on certain guys. Who was he put over? I don't see it. Now, there's a part of me. There is a part of me who watches what happened. And we go back to a week before tonight where he cut the promo. And he cut the promo on Adam Page. And he cut the promo on Jon Moxley. And there's a little bit of me that goes, CM Punk's a smart guy. I don't discount that at all. He's a smart guy. This is a work. He's working the crowd. He's not ready to come back. He is in business for himself, but he also understands how to kind of structure this to make it work for him. I don't blame CM Punk for going into business for himself. Couple reasons. Number one, Cowboy Adam Page is a boring as fuck babyface. Boring as fuck. And here's the problem. When you have a boring as fuck babyface, and that's their guy. That's their main guy. That's their main babyface in AEW. AEW, why can't you produce? This is what happens. When you don't have a captain of the ship, this is what happens. Everybody wants to be a bad guy in AEW. Yeah. Even the good guys want to do bad guy things. And that's a problem. Why doesn't AEW have more main event caliber baby faces? Main event. I know that Jericho can teeter on the baby face, but he does some heel stuff. I know about Jungle Boy, but Jungle Boy's not main event. I know about these names that you're going to throw at me. They're not main event. Adam Page is the only baby face that has held kind of a main event status. Kenny Omega, I don't know what the fuck he is. And right now he's tied up in this trios thing. So if there's anybody CM Punk is going to go after as far as baby faces go, it's got to be Adam Page. Oh, but D, CM Punk was a babyface. He can't be. He doesn't know how to do that long term. He doesn't know how to do that. And CM Punk is lobbying. He knows what's best for business. CM Punk knows that the only thing that can put AEW over the top as far as casual wrestling fans go is CM Punk versus MJF. That's the best thing for business. And if he can't get to that, he's got to go into business for himself and start figuring out what the next avenue is. This match tonight was a line in the sand for Tony Khan. It really was. It was a line in the sand because you had two options. A, you could have this match play out exactly the way it did. A squash match. You fucking squash CM Punk. You try to pretend that the injury was but this was a squash match. They squashed it. They put it in. CM Punk's going to have to rebuild a character after this. He's going to have to rebuild himself. It could have gone like that. Or you could have had CM Punk go anti-establishment, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But look, one thing that's important to talk about here. The IWC and all these people, when I said I hate the word fickle, well, fuck you. I'm about to use the word fickle. You know what? Y'all want to throw it. You throw it at the casual fans all the time. Casual WWE fans are fickle. Casual wrestling fans are fickle. No. Look how quick y'all turned on CM Punk.
That's true.
Look how quick the IWC turned on. They all fucking loved him when he came back. Mm-hmm. They all told me, you need to shut the fuck up and just wait. CM Punk's going to come back and he's going to do all these fake. No. He didn't do them. And now you've turned on him. You've turned on him because he went after your indie darlings. He went after your Adam Pages. He didn't come back and put everybody over. He didn't make Darby Allin a star. He didn't do any of this for this. I've been critical of CM Punk only because I want him to be honest. I want CM Punk to come back and say, I'm here, I'm in business for myself. I'm not, Daniel Bryan did it. Bryan Danielson came out and said, I'm not here to put all these young kids over.
Yeah.
I'm here to wrestle and to make myself look good. And CM Punk should have been right behind him saying,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
Not at all.
Just be honest about it.
Not at all. You're a big draw. CM Punk's a big deal. Fuck Eddie Kingston and fuck all these guys in the AEW locker room who try to pretend like CM Punk coming back, like we didn't want you here. Yes, you did. When CM Punk came back, you had a prime opportunity, AEW. All eyes were on AEW.
Yeah.
Everybody. My eyes, your eyes, everybody was watching, and they fucking shit the bed when it came to CM Punk. But you know what this is?
What?
This is what happens when you let fucking inmates run an asylum. When the patients are running the asylum, this is what happens. When you don't have anybody. You don't have anybody telling these guys, no, that's not what we're doing. You all can't do what you want. This is what happens. This is the metaphorical social experiment that happens, and it happens in every company, not just wrestling. In every company, there are a group of lower level employees who band together and they sit around in the break room and they talk to each other and they go, we could do this so much better. Fuck the guys who run this company. They don't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. We could do this so much better. And it always happens. 2 or 3 guys break off. They start a company, and 6 weeks later, they don't have a job because they couldn't do it better. Yeah. Because they couldn't make the hard decisions. People have to make hard decisions. Structure is a necessary evil in a company, especially in pro wrestling. Somebody has to tell you, yes, that's a good idea. And somebody has to tell you, no, it's not a good idea. And even then, it has to be somebody that everybody respects. Somebody, I get it, right? Vince McMahon was over scrutinized promos. He wrote them for people. It got to a point where he became overly zealous with the product that he was controlling every small detail. And that's not good either. But Tony Khan is just the other end of the spectrum is all it is. He's a guy who's going, you can say whatever you want. I don't fucking care.
So is one
I'm head of creative, but you go do here in AEW, you do what you want to do, and we'll just figure it out as we go. I believe now more than ever that Cody Rhodes, he saw this coming. He saw the writing on the wall. He came out of whatever he was going through. And when his contract was in flux and he goes, hey, this like, I don't like the way this is trending. I don't believe that he fully foresaw what this was going to be. And the kind of disdain that was building in the back. But I do think he saw like, there may not be a place for me. Tony's bringing in all this new talent. He's enamored with all this new talent. There's so many mouths to feed. I think he looked at WWE at that point and goes, it's the lesser of the two evils. It's both of them. Like Vince McMahon's not much better, but he's lesser of two evils. Lucky for Cody, all this shit happens and Triple H takes over. Now it looks like it's not even a comparison. It looks like you've got Tony Khan on one end as the guy who will let you do anything. You've got Vince McMahon on the other end was the guy who wouldn't let you do anything. And now it's starting, at least just from a visual perspective, to look like Triple H is the guy that's letting people, he's giving them a little bit of a leash. He's still not going to let you go out into business for yourself, but there's not enough food on the AEW table right now. And guys like CM Punk, they have to go into business for themselves. And I also think that Tony Khan has hung his hat a little too much on, you hear the AEW people, when I talk about there's a split between AEW and WWE, right?
Yes.
That WWE is killing them. They all argue, no, AEW is winning in the 18 to 49 male demographic. You guys are hung up in the past with that shit. That's not the only demo that matters to pro wrestling anymore. In fact, that demo is so spread out. The 18 to 49 male demo is so fucking, like, it's so, that group of people have so much content they consume. They consume Marvel, Star Wars, video games, Twitch streamers, NFL. Like that group is so all over the fucking place. I see people who watch wrestling for 4 or 5 weeks, then they're gone and they're watching the NFL. Or when the NFL starts, they're done. UFC takes a big part of the audience. The demo doesn't matter anymore. There's everybody. Look in a wrestling crowd, especially WWE. There's everybody. There's women, moms, grandmas, kids, babies. There's a little bit of everything. So you can't, AEW puts all these eggs in this basket of like, we just got to win the fucking hardcore wrestling demo. It's not working. It's not working. The way you're booking this shit's not working. There is a reason and this is a little off topic, but I'm going somewhere with this. There's a reason that WWE doesn't want its women's wrestlers on OnlyFans. There's a reason. It's perception.
Yeah.
It's perception because parents don't want their kids, and you can talk about it's 2022 and you women's empowerment shit. That's fine. But most parents don't want their kids to grow up and be on OnlyFans.
True.
It's not a dream of the parent. It doesn't make you fucking closed-minded. That's just the truth. Most parents don't fucking aspire for their child to do that. WWE wants to control its characters. It's why someone has to say yes or no. Someone has to be the captain of the ship. And Tony Khan, he doesn't have that cachet. Even now, if he's trying to reel it all back in, he doesn't have that. He doesn't have that respect, especially after you let the inmates run the fucking prison. It's like a rookie football coach or basketball coach coming in to a team full of veterans. They don't listen. They don't respect you. Yeah, you're a fan and you let us do whatever we want. And that was cool. But now that you're going to try and fucking organize this thing, we don't want any part of that. Yeah. There was a reason that Vince McMahon could be Vince McMahon. It was because people respected the shit he had done up until this point. And even if you thought what he was doing was wrong, you still had to go, yeah, but he's still Vince McMahon.
Yeah.
Like I said, this isn't new information. CM Punk, he didn't come back to put talent over. He wasn't here to make Hangman Adam Page look good. CM Punk strokes CM Punk's ego. That's what he does. CM Punk understands what it takes to be a commercially successful wrestler. As much as he may hate that, he may not want to admit that, but CM Punk understands what WWE did for him and why it was and why commercial and casual fans matter. CM Punk actually is one of the better wrestlers at balancing those two aspects of being a pro wrestler. He's pretty good at being an IWC darling and getting the attention of the casual fans. And so what does Tony Khan do? He destroys CM Punk tonight.
I told you.
But you told me, but it's, yes, he had a broken foot, but his foot's been broken. Mm-hmm. And the day he broke it, you had an option. You didn't have to have Punk to drop the belt tonight. You could have had him relinquish the title the night he broke his foot. Come out and say, guys, broke my foot. I'm going to relinquish the title. I will be back. That saves CM Punk as a babyface. 100%. Mm-hmm. You can put him on the shelf. Then when he's fully ready, you don't have to play this game where people are getting tired, because just like WWE, when the real champion's not around, people start going, what the fuck are we doing? This is scripted. Yeah. It's not real. Like, I get when someone like Francis Ngannou goes missing with the title belt. That's a real thing. He's a real fighter. Yeah. When Roman Reigns and CM Punk go missing, you go, can't you just write the belt back into the fucking story? And then essentially that's what they did tonight. But you should have had him drop the belt when he was first injured. All of this buildup, all of this hype, all of it for a fucking 3 to 5 minute match.
Yeah. I would have been pissed.
Me too. I mean, me too. The fucking way they built this up. And thank God, now I get why they took it off the pay-per-view. All of this, and I get it, CM Punk was hurt. But all of this all of this buildup, all of this talk for CM Punk to get squashed. And what? What did this do for anybody? What did this do for Moxley? Oh, Moxley destroyed CM Punk. He was fucking crippled. Like, they played up to the fact that his foot's broken. Like, he grabbed his foot and he twisted his foot for 2 seconds and then pinned him. Like, that doesn't make you a monster. This felt like a clusterfuck. This feels like a company. This feels like a man in Tony Khan who has no fucking clue what he's doing at this point. He's so lost and so desperate to make a product that makes sense that he will fucking just, I'll listen to the crowd. I don't know. Is he listening to Vince Russo now? Who the fuck is he listening to? Because that was the wrong fucking decision. That match was so stupid. Let me book the match for you, Tony. Let me book the match for you. Here's how you book this match, okay?
Okay.
This is how you book this match. CM Punk is the ultimate anti-establishment wrestler. He is at his optimum when he hates the company he works for. So right now, what are the fucking dirt sheets and news sites all reading? CM Punk's unhappy.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be there. Fucking lay into it.
He went off script.
Have CM Punk walk out tonight. Walk out, look John Moxley in the eyes, fucking throw the belt at him and go, I don't fucking like the pussies that are in this company. If Adam Page gets his feelings hurt because I cut a promo, fuck him. If Tony Khan gets his feelings hurt because I went off script, fuck him too. Fuck all you. I don't want to be the champion for a company who does this kind of shit. Have him throw the fucking belt and walk back out. And Moxley gets to hold both belts. And so then Moxley can go on defending it and be the company man. And CM Punk can now be your anti-establishment guy. By squashing CM Punk, what are we doing? I mean, is there a chance that was it? Was that the end of CM Punk? I mean, is he done?
No, I don't think so.
There's rumblings that he could be done because if he's disgruntled and he wants nothing to do with it, here, take your belt, I'm going home. And I don't really blame him. I'm not necessarily on the side that everybody thought. Everybody was like, I can't wait to hear you shit on CM Punk. My stance on CM Punk has always been the same. Mm-hmm. Just be honest. Just be honest. You're a dickhead. But that's okay.
But then be the dickhead.
We need good dickheads in wrestling. Yeah. And he's good at it. Be that. You're fucking, and if you're working the crowd, great. But the best way was you had CM Punk right where you wanted him. God, he could have been to Tony Khan exactly what he did to Vince McMahon, and you've got the CM Punk back that everybody watches. It's just, I don't know what they're doing. I really don't. I try. I said I'm going to try and buy into this AEW shit, but after tonight, I don't think I can watch that shit. It's so fucking messy. And now we have I don't know if it's real or if it's storyline, but Thunder Rosa's hurt. They're going to fucking crown a new interim champion. The same thing that we just had to fucking fix with CM Punk.
Yeah.
We had to book this stupid ass title match to fix the fact that they made Moxley an interim champion, and then got all the way to All Out and they need the fucking belt off of CM Punk.
Yeah.
We're just going to do it again with Thunder Rosa? Like, how can we fucking keep making these stupid mistakes?
So, Monday night, we learned that Toxic Attraction will be unable to continue the women's tag team tournament due to injury. This was after we found out that for unforeseen medical issues, Nikita Lyons and Zoe Stark were dropped from the first round. Do you think that swapping out Toxic Attraction for Nikita Lyons was the plan the entire time? And was it ultimately the right decision? Now that Toxic Attraction had to withdraw from the tournament, what should WWE do?
I'll answer the second question first. What should they do? You stick to the plan. You stick to the plan because the plan, nothing's changed in the plan. Toxic Attraction, Nikita Lyons, they were all just there to get exposure. They were a means to an end. The SmackDown side, if you look at the brackets, it's kind of broken down by Raw and SmackDown. The SmackDown side of this bracket was just about character building. That's all it ever was about. It was about exposure for these teams. There's only been one team that's legitimately got the shot to win this thing, and I believe that's Io Sky and Dakota Kai. Mm-hmm. This has all been leading to a win for these two, for a tag team run for these two, and I believe to a feud at some point with a returning Sasha Banks and Naomi. That's the only way I've ever seen this going.
Yeah.
I was wrong on Shotzi and Xia Li beating Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was irrelevant. I did think the NXT would make it all the way to the finals. Mm-hmm. Now that's not going to happen because you have this weird thing where we're bringing back some second round opportunity or something like that.
Yeah, the second chance.
I don't even give a fuck. I'm not even going to predict who wins because it doesn't matter. There was one option. Nobody's panicked. Nobody's worried. Unfortunately for Toxic Attraction, after I said they proved they were ready for the main roster, they don't get an opportunity to show again how ready they actually are. But let's be real. Toxic Attraction, they're ready for the main roster.
Yeah.
They looked good as a tag team. They looked good in the ring. They have the look. They held their own. I see no reason why they're not, as soon as they're able to get back up and going, they're not.
Did they say what happened?
One of them got hurt. One of them, and I believe they really got hurt.
Yeah.
I believe something happened. I think if I recall when we were watching, I even made the statement like the one girl looks like she's hurt. She really looks like she's hurt.
That sounds familiar, yeah.
To answer the first question, do I think that there was an intentional switch? I don't think so. I don't think it was an intentional switch. I think something happened, whether it was her not being Nikita Lyons not being vaccinated, whether Zoe Stark was really injured and they thought if we can't have both, we're better off going with Toxic Attraction. I don't think that was by design. I do believe that Triple H and WWE know Nikita Lyons is the most marketable female wrestler under the age of 25. And for the under 25 demo outside of maybe Mandy Rose. Yeah. Like Mandy Rose, and they're Nikita Lyons gets attention. Like when she first came in, she did like the pin where she did the splits and landed. That was all over TikTok. Yeah. Like there were dudes making videos, like laying on the floor, you're saying pin me and stuff like that. So I think that their idea was originally get her on the main show and let everybody get introduced to her. Whether she wins, whether she loses, just put her on TV and let these young guys start to get excited about the new talent that's coming. Yes. So I don't think that was by design. I think more importantly, we have to look at right now, and I'm sure I'll get argued about this, but Triple H has to look at this. He's got the bone structures right now. If he looks at this, looks at the big landscape here, he's got the structures for a women's tag team division all of a sudden. It's funny how just a few tweaks and a few changes, and we go from there's no need to have tag team belts to we got a pretty good Dakota Kai, Io Sky. Okay. Sasha and Naomi, which I'm under the belief they're signed. We're just waiting for this thing to all kind of unfold. You got Toxic Attraction. They look like they belong. Don't even send them back to NXT. Their main roster. Leave them there. Doudrop and Nikki Ash. You need a couple teams that can get beat up every week. Hey, they could get beat up every week. Still lurking in the shadows as Carmella and Zelina Vega. They were a fun tag team. They were. And once they're back, both healthy, they're viable to come back. They can float when you need another team. And then I've been saying this, but if there's two trains of thought here. We talked about, I'm on the belief that you get the belt off of Liv Morgan. Lots of people don't think so. So if they decide to keep the belt on Liv Morgan, Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler make a hell of a scary tag team. That would be a fun team to see with the tag team belts, or just at least challenging some of these teams for the tag team belts. It would be fun to see. So the bones are there. The possibility to all of a sudden form a viable women's division exists. Here's the thing. When you have to plan for things like injury or unforeseen circumstances, and they don't derail when you have a plan that doesn't derail your vision. And that was convoluted the way I said that. What I'm trying to say is Triple H has a plan. So injuries and shit like this, the way they would have fucked up Vince McMahon in the past and he'd panic and blow it all up. Triple H just goes, none of this affects the script. None of this affects the path. We can just continue forward. Oh, then just give somebody a second chance. Yeah. And like I said, like this, the plan has always been, I believe it's Sky and Kai. That's what the plan is. And it showed even more true with Bayley this week. Bayley getting to finally wrestle, and I finally saw Bayley wrestle. And I admittedly I've not seen Bayley wrestle a ton. Yeah, me neither. So I'm just going to speak off my impressions of Bayley. This was one of the first times I've ever seen a full Bayley match. Bayley's a better manager than she is a wrestler. Maybe she's just recovering from injury. Maybe she's not. Maybe there's ring rust. I get it. Like, that's it. But from what I see, Bayley, to me, could be more Paul Heyman-esque than she is wrestler-esque. And there's nothing wrong with that.
She's definitely a good manager.
And the fact that you can do both makes you good. I see there's ring rust. You can tell there's ring rust, and I'm overreacting, and you do just have to give her time. I think it's smart now that I see the reason they brought her back with company, with Sky and Kai, is that they're able to protect her. It's a smart way to protect her for the foreseeable future. Because I'm guessing that Bianca Belair, for the next 3 months, she's intertwined with Bayley. That's the plan. The roadmap forward is Bayley for the foreseeable future. So you go, all right, that gives Bayley time. It gives her time to get ready for an athletic match, because you're going to need some good athletic matches with Bianca Belair. So we go Clash at the Castle. That's 3-on-3. You can protect Bayley. She doesn't need to be in there much. She can get in there, do a couple heel things, get out, let the two youngins get in there and tear it up. Yes. Right? Extreme Rules is the next pay-per-view or premium live event. What you can do there, put her in a some kind of gimmicky match, right? Weapons. And let her do the heel thing and beat up on Bianca. And she doesn't have to, by then she'll be more in sync, but probably not exactly ready. And then by Survivor Series, you can go Team Bianca, Team Bayley, one big last blowout for the two teams. And then after that, I think they don't have a premium live event till January 1st, which is day one. By then, we're talking 4 months. Bayley's ready to go. That's when you get your big blow-off match between Bayley and Bianca. You can book out the next 4 months pretty safely for Bayley, for somebody who does have ring rust. I talked about Toxic Attraction. I want to circle back to that. When I said don't take them back to NXT. I've heard the rumblings that NXT, as we know it, is kind of done. We heard that NXT Europe and NXT are merging. They're going to merge it. They're having a unification title match. So there's going to be some changes. I think we're on the cusp of NXT 3.0. They're probably not going to call it that. But with merging of the brands, I think we're going to see some call-ups for the people who are ready. And then I think this NXT 3.0, they're going to bring back a lot of old stars. I think you may see a couple of WWE stars move down. You may see a couple people. That'd be interesting. You may see Dominic and Omos move down quietly. Because I don't know if anybody's noticed, Dominic's gone.
Yeah.
They've almost, unless there's some long-term story at play here, they've abandoned that story.
Because it's shitty?
Well, because it probably was not doing Dominic any favors, him getting beat up by Rhea every week. And it feels like that they've abandoned that and they're going a whole different way with Edge and Judgment Day and everything they got going on. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like at Clash of the Castle we may get some form of Edge, Beth Phoenix, maybe like Rey Mysterio in that match. But I don't think you're getting Dominic unless that's where he turns. Maybe so.
So this past week, WWE and Peacock dropped a new episode of the Broken Skull podcast featuring Charlotte Flair, a wrestler you have actually been pretty critical of in the past. Did the Charlotte Flair Broken Skull interview change your mind about her?
Yes. That's funny. Yeah, I'm a fan now. I get it. I get it. I get the whole Charlotte Flair hype. I understand it. I fell into the fucking trap of thinking she was who the wrestler was. 100%. Thought she was an arrogant asshole. And then I see her on the podcast with Stone Cold, who Stone Cold did a good job of getting things out of her. I understand she's an athlete. She has an athlete's mentality. She doesn't have a wrestler's mentality. She has an athlete's mentality. She is a strong blend of somebody who has the business, the wrestling business. It's in her blood. Her dad. Yeah. You can't get away from that. But she comes from an athlete's mindset. And during the podcast, I don't want to spoil too much of it, but during the podcast, it's worth watching. She appeared vulnerable at times, nervous, didn't like to talk about herself, extremely critical of the things she's done. And she speaks on a few different topics. She talks about Andrade and being in a relationship, and that's her best friend. The vibes I got from that, Andrade will be back in WWE. Like, now that they're married and the way fucking AEW is a mess, they're not using him. I believe first opportunity he gets, he will figure out how to jump ship.
Bicycles.
I don't think he was the mole that we talked about last week, but I think he will be one of the first defectors back. I don't know what his contract status is, but I do believe, based on what she said, he will be back. I found it interesting that she said wrestling was never her dream. I thought that was cool because you hear Liv Morgan and you hear Becky Lynch and you hear all these people who they tell the same story, and I'm sure some of it's true and I'm sure some of it is embellished, but they go, I had a cardboard belt and this is all I ever wanted. Charlotte was like, I could give two fucks about wrestling until I was approached about it. I really didn't think this was something I would do. Like, these were just people. I saw the women wrestlers and thought, man, I'm not pretty enough to be that. And so I thought that was interesting. It humanized her. Yeah. It made her feel, when I hear Becky Lynch talk, Becky Lynch is always in character. Even like when she's interviewing and things, there's a hint Becky never leaves character. And that's great for wrestling. That's not Charlotte. Charlotte was Charlotte in the interview. It's almost like when the lights turn off, there's a timid person that kind of comes out, and she was humble and she felt more human than most wrestlers. Like I said, she was nervous.
I like when I see that that side of wrestlers, and I am 100% guilty of hating somebody on screen, and then I'll see them in an interview or like on a TV show, and then I'm like, oh my God, I love them.
And I'm almost never guilty of that.
I am.
But with her, for some reason, it resonated. And I think it's a testament to how good of a bad guy she is. How good she is at being bad just made me go, I don't like her. She's arrogant. I thought it was interesting the way she literally, when she talks, everything that Stone Cold shows her, she's dissecting it. She's like, I should have done this. I should have done that. This is where I fucked up. This is where I could have been better. I was so nervous right here. It's not like you expect this level of like cockiness and arrogance. And there's a switch. Like you see where she goes, WrestleMania 35, I knew I had it. I knew like I had turned the corner and I was the deal. But
yeah,
there's so much of like, I wish I would have held that look longer. I wish I wouldn't have done this. And then she talks about other people. She talks highly about people like Paige. She talked very highly of Paige, of wanting to be like Paige and like enjoying that, kind of embracing the fact that Paige was the anti-diva. And she goes, oh, that's fucking cool.
Yeah.
But you know, that's not who she ended up being. She had high praise for someone like Nikki Bella, who, well, I'll talk about later in the show. I have some thoughts on Nikki Bella, but just interesting to see like that was someone she looked up to when she came into the business, because she was kind of captivating the crowd at the time. And then she talks about John Cena and how like the only kind of compass she had was, well, John Cena makes the kids happy. I want to make the kids happy. And just to kind of wrap, there's so much good shit. You got to go watch it. It's worth the watch. Those Stone Cold is extremely good at pulling wrestling out of people, like getting them to talk and not just talk about it from the stand. I almost feel like Stone Cold, he gets a free pass with WWE to walk past lines that you're not supposed to walk. Because they even at one point ask her about Sasha Banks and Naomi. And that's a dangerous question.
Yeah.
That can go really bad. And I thought she navigated that question extremely well. She didn't take sides. She just kind of said, I feel for these people. I can't imagine never wrestling Sasha Banks again, is what she said. So she navigated that extremely well. But Stone Cold gets away with asking questions that I think most other people...
Like, shh, we're not supposed to talk about that.
Most other people associated with WWE would be... And even the fact that he got to interview like Jericho.
Yeah.
Was interesting. I think Stone Cold's definitely given a bigger leash. It's like a weird analogy, but
I think Jericho left on good terms, so even...
I don't know. I don't know what terms Jericho's on. He talks shit.
I watched him in an interview with Renee Paquette or whatever, and he just basically said, like, look, I went up to Vince and was like, what do you have for me? And he's like, we don't really have anything for you right now. And then he was just kind of like, well... Yeah,
I get it. But he also throws a lot of underhanded jabs every so often. So, but he's also working the business.
Yeah.
But the last thing I thought that was super interesting was, and this is a sentiment that I had, and when she spoke about it, and her, what's the word I'm looking for? Her cognizance, or just her ability to like even understand. She said she wished that the last match she had with Ronda at Backlash, the I Quit match, which we all said was fucking fantastic.
Yes. She
wished that was WrestleMania. That's what I had said the whole time. I was like, where the fuck was this? The WrestleMania match was so confusing and it didn't work. And then that Backlash match was a fucking masterpiece. So the fact that she was aware, self-aware enough to go, I wish this was this. But when I look in retrospect, because that match was a month later, it meant more. It was the biggest deal on its card. And I think it ends up being, she left in such a favorable light that now when she comes back, especially after that interview, I think she'll have a little bit of a new fan base. Problem is, when you do something like that, and she says she's a natural heel, problem is you start making people like you too much, and it becomes, you ask Becky Lynch, it becomes harder and harder to be a heel.
Okay, so the last couple of weeks you've been critical about the misuse of titles in WWE and the number of titles in AEW. Do you think that pro wrestling has too many titles? And do you think that Triple H has done a good job of reviving the U.S. and Intercontinental?
Okay, so this stems a little bit from some of the things I said in the last couple of weeks. And also I know I read something on one of my news sites about Bully Ray talking about AEW and WWE having too many belts and how they don't mean anything. And so it made me go... It's easy to get caught up and go, there's too many belts. But you have to, I like to, when questions like this arise, I like to to look at them from like a mathematical standpoint. Sometimes you have to break things down and look at things. It's not always the most fun way to do it, but there's a way to make sense of things. And what I did is I started with WWE and the argument that WWE has too many titles and they don't mean anything. And I go, okay, so let's start by figuring out what is WWE's roster size? How many wrestlers are there? 50 Raw superstars, men and women, 48 SmackDown. We're going to talk about this as company-wide, not men, not women, just company-wide, right? That means there's 98 wrestlers employed by Raw and SmackDown. We're not including NXT. They have their own set of belts. As far as I'm concerned, that's a different thing. Okay, so in WWE, we have 2 heavyweight belts.
Yes.
Universal and the WWE title. They're both on Roman, but we have 2. We have 2 mid-card belts. The Intercontinental and the United States Championship. Y'all fuckers can argue me all you want. They're mid-card belts. Uh-huh. I'm not playing that argument again. We have 2 tag team belts, Raw and SmackDown. Mm-hmm. Then we have a comedy belt, the 24/7, which appears to be possibly buried, but until they officially tell me it's not there, for math reasons, I'm putting it in there, okay? Mm-hmm. On the women's side, we have 2 heavyweight belts, SmackDown and Raw, and then we have a tag team belt. So right now in WWE, we have 9 champions.
Yes.
Because of the way the belts are convoluted and so many people are carrying around 2 belts, there's 9 champions. But the reality is there's a possibility at any given time of having 13 champions in WWE.
Okay.
All right, 13 champions. If you do the math, that's about 13% of the roster can hold a belt.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem disproportionate.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem disproportionate to anywhere from 10 to 15% of the roster holding titles feels appropriate. It's 12% if we assume that the 24/7 belt is dead, which I assume it's getting close to being dead or at least revamped. Yeah, I think 15%. Anything under 15%, you don't want to exceed that number. When you get to 20% of your belt, 20% of your roster having a belt, that's 1/5. That's too much. But 10 to 15% feels comfortable. So then we got to go AEW because that's there's a misconception. And I'm most to blame for this. Okay. I've always said AEW has too many fucking belts.
Yeah.
And if you throw in the Ring of Honor ones, it's messy. But once again, like NXT, we're not going to include Ring of Honor. We're gonna allow that to be separate. AEW has 12 titles. Okay. AEW has 125 wrestlers on contract. That's the best I could tell. That number is disputed in a bunch of places, but as far as I could tell, it's about 125 wrestlers on the roster.
Okay.
That's 10% of people can hold a belt. That's not that big of a deal. Yeah. And even though, they got tag team trio, TNT, TBS, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, even though they have all these belts, perception is a problem, right? I even fall into it when I hear people go, they have too many belts. I fall into that, but really 10% is not a bad percentage.
No,
it's not bad. Like that's the amount of belts you need to keep casual fans interested and keep people interested. I stated on last week's show that WWE needs to clearly define their brand split in the title situation, because that's what matters. Right now, WWE's problem is, I don't know, like, why does everybody have 12 belts on their shoulder, right? The Usos got a fucking stack of belts. Either put the belts together or don't. These rosters they're big. 120, what did I say for WWE?
120 and then 125 for AEW. Wait, no.
WWE was 98.
Okay,
and 125 for AEW.
Yeah.
Those are big rosters. You need that amount of titles to keep people interested. You can't have 125 wrestlers and like 2 belts for people to go after. That math doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. You have to give people a reason to cheer for the people they like. The only complaint I have, and AEW does this, I don't think they do it well, but they do it, is that rankings should matter. Rankings should matter in pro wrestling. I don't care that it's scripted. They should still matter. And it doesn't have to be rankings in a sense of, I don't know that you need like numbered rankings, like in the sense of like, oh, this guy's 7-0. That's less important than, I think there should be a way to track power rankings. You should be able to go on WWE's website and it says Seth Rollins right now, it's like college football. He's the 3rd ranked wrestler in WWE. Like UFC, right?
Yeah.
UFC essentially, your record doesn't necessarily matter in UFC as much as where Dana and them vote you in. And you need that, I think, in WWE. They need a power ranking system.
Okay.
So I don't think we have too many belts. I think the problem we've had in the Vince McMahon era, and I'm back to speaking kind of strictly on WWE, I think the problem was the representation that the belts had. The like Shinsuke Nakamura being Intercontinental Champion and it not being defended on a pay-per-view for 18 months. That's doesn't crazy. Make sense. It is fun. I talked about it earlier. I'll talk about it again, and I will sing the praises of Triple H until he does something to make me, send him to the dark side. Triple H has made these belts feel like a big deal again. With Gunther, headlining SmackDowns, Bobby Lashley headlining Raws, and even, we talked about that second hour being the headline match.
Yeah.
These guys are in effective feuds. They're in effective segments of the show, and it feels like a big deal, especially if Roman's going to be gone. My biggest plea I said about 3 months ago was, if Roman's gone, we have to make the two other belts feel like they mean something. And I think I even said, which I contradicted myself earlier, that we got to put the United States title on somebody that matters. Well, Bobby Lashley, that seems like a guy that matters. He raises it up. He's able to build it, establish it. Then he drops it back to the guys who need it.
Yeah.
And it's textbook what Triple H is doing. But speaking of Roman Reigns, I'm going to beat this drum every week. We got to get one of the belts off of him. We have to. Raw needs a main title. They need it. That way you can do the 2 hours.
Yes.
The last 3 hours, the 10 o'clock and the 11 o'clock, you can have belts featured in both spots. I think fucking Tony Khan's proved this. These interim champion bullshit.
Yeah.
They don't work. You can't do that. That doesn't work in a scripted sport. It's great. It's great in the UFC when something happens to a real champion and he's unable to defend his belt. You can't just strip him of his belt. But in scripted wrestling, you got to have those guys drop the belt. It's bullshit. Man, 2 sets of belts. They make events and Corey corrected me. Listener of the show, Corey corrected me. I said Night of Champions last week, and it's actually bragging rights.
Okay.
So Night of Champions was a pay-per-view where every belt was put on the line. Mm-hmm. Bragging rights. So it's just like every belt, like every match was a title match at Night of Champions. Okay. Bragging rights. I said that it was champion versus champion at Night of Champions. There was a pay-per-view called Bragging Rights, which was SmackDown versus Raw.
Okay.
And that's where it was champion versus champion. Oh. So I was wrong about that. Corey set me straight on that one, and I appreciate that.
All right.
But yeah, when used effectively, the mid-card titles, to me, they're a more important aspect to pro wrestling than the main titles even. The main titles are kind of a crown. They're a badge of honor for it's kind of an acknowledgement of this is the guy. This guy has earned the status of being the man or the woman of the company. They're the top dog. You can put your crown on, go wave to the crowd a couple times. We're going to put you in some main events. But the mid-card titles, they're kind of a gate, right? They're a test. If you get the United States Championship and you can't get over, well, we know we can't put the WWE title on you. Can't put the Universal title on you. So those are more important to the development. And then just lastly, I still think there's guys who transcend titles altogether. Guys like Kenny Omega, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, but you have to be careful. Even Britt Baker, and I'm going to take shit for this again. Mm-hmm. You can't go too long without putting the belts back on those guys. They have to taste the glory every so often. I think Triple H is about to do that with Kevin Owens. Somehow, some way, he's about to get a title wrapped around his waist. But it's guys like Kenny Omega. You have to keep the casual fans interested. They have to touch that belt every so often. And I don't think that either company has done a good job of that. As far as when I look at AEW's women's situation, Thunder Rosa is a lame duck champion. 100%. You got Britt Baker needs to touch that belt again. Even if it's just for a short transitional period, you've got to put that belt on her for a second.
SmackDown and Raw this last week were both held in Canadian arenas. It felt like both crowds were on fire for Canadian wrestlers. What do you think of the pop that Sami Zayn got in Canada? And what is going on with Sami Zayn and the Bloodline? What do you think about the push of Kevin Owens?
So that last question I added at the end. I just wanted to talk about Kevin Owens. Any opportunity to talk about Kevin Owens.
I can tell.
It was added in. It's just an and. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Sami, though. Let's talk about Canada. Canada was on fire, man.
It was.
It felt like wrestling was a big deal again. I think there's a little bit of Triple H and a little bit of that, Canada's, it's a big wrestling place. recognition is overdue for Sami Zayn. I've been screaming this for a long time. He's a bigger deal than people make him out to be. He is similar to R-Truth. He's a guy that's got all the intangibles, does all the work, and just doesn't get the fucking credit for the things he does. R-Truth deserves more credit. But at least Sami Zayn got that night where the crowd was on fire.
Yeah.
And it's always so much fun to watch wrestling when there's that weird anomaly. Anywhere else, it's just Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
But just at that point in time, it was fucking Sami Zayn, and the crowd was going nuts. It's starting to look like, to me, if we're trying to piece together what's going on, Sami Zayn is the key to the demise of the bloodline. Like, I thought for a minute that there was just a comedic element to inserting him into the bloodline, but now it's really starting to look like it's taking shape that he could be the fall of Roman Reigns and the Usos. And I say that because I think Sami is headed on a path that leads back to Kevin Owens. I truly believe this. I believe there's a tag team in the works there, and you can book that out for a long time. There's years worth of booking between Sami and KO.
Yeah.
What you can do with Sami and KO is you can put the tag team titles back on them. Have them be the team. They're a team. They're a viable team. It's believable that they beat the Usos. They take those belts from the Usos. Here we go. You can have 6 months, 8 months run with those two in the tag team title picture. Now they can drop it, pick it back up, however you want to work that out, but they can have longevity there. Then what you can do is when they finally do break up, there's a story. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens have unbelievable chemistry. They had it in NXT, and that hasn't gone anywhere. So you get eight months to a year worth of booking out of this.
Yeah.
Now, if you just want to praise Sami, look, he's been praised by Brock Lesnar. He's been praised by Roman Reigns. He's worked well with all these guys. He's added to stories they've been involved in. You look at guys like Sami Zayn, R-Truth, Zack Ryder, Dolph Ziggler. They weren't Vince McMahon guys, and that's the problem. Mm-hmm. And now Triple H is in charge, and I think Triple H recognizes a little bit of the fanfare that comes around these guys. Like Zack Ryder went and made an internet show, got big, and then I think Vince McMahon was kind of like, fuck you, you went around me. Whereas I think Triple H is more like, oh shit, the crowd recognizes Sami. Let's do something with Sami. I think that KO ultimately at some point here in the next couple weeks, KO is going to tell Sami Zayn quit the clown shit. Here's what I think happens this week on SmackDown. Let's get this posted quick so I can go on record as an oracle on this one. I think what we're building to is Sami Zayn is going to be looking for recognition from Roman Reigns. He's now taken a Claymore for one of the Usos, and he's taken a Claymore for Roman Reigns. So he's going to be looking for that. He's like, hey guys, I'm putting my body online week after week, and they're not going to acknowledge him. And so what's going to happen is I think KO shows up and ultimately tells him, what are you doing? Why are you fucking around with these guys? Quit clowning around. Let's get to business. And somehow they form a team and challenge the Usos for the tag team belts. I do believe that's where we're headed.
That would be pretty cool.
I think that more and more, there's parts of me that believe this is it. Like we are at the precipice of the bloodline finally coming. It feels like Drew McIntyre is the guy to do it. It really does. It feels like they're starting to already build between Karrion Kross and Drew McIntyre, and you could put the belts involved in that. And the way you could do it is if Drew takes them off of Roman and then Karrion challenges him for maybe one of those belts somehow and then takes that belt to Monday Night Raw. Now you've got the belt split up. It feels there's a way to work that story out where that works. So I do feel like that Kevin Owens and Sami will it's just a guess. I'm hoping. I think it would work. But as far as Kevin Owens goes on his push, I've been beating this drum, for the last year. Yep. I've been saying, what the fuck are we doing with Kevin Owens? Can't do this Ezekiel shit forever. Mm-hmm. He can't be what happens when Kevin moves on. Kevin Owens, I said this around February, maybe January. I said Kevin Owens is the most important person in professional wrestling. He's the hardest worker, and he's the most all-around talented wrestler. That means cutting a promo, hard worker, shows up every week, skilled. He can fucking the intensity. It's all there. Everything. It's all level 10 with Kevin Owens. And so it's about time we get back to prize fighter Kevin Owens. It's about time we get big deal Kevin Owens. I think that, like I said, a tag team run with Sami Zayn, that we get fired up. We get to see him as a champion. Let them have a solid run with the tag team belts. They break up. Kevin and Sami go at it. We get a hellacious feud. And then by that time, whatever you've done with the world title, you can do. And it's time to put Kevin back in the world title picture to fucking have possibly, I think, here's the thing about Kevin Owens. I think Kevin Owens, we throw around Stone Cold's name all the time. And I know they fought at WrestleMania, which is interesting because I think there was foreshadowing there. We throw around Stone Cold's name. We go, Becky Lynch could be Stone Cold. No, she can't. Moxley could be Stone Cold. No, he can't. Kevin Owens, he has that potential. He has that intensity. And it's not because he does the stunner, because it looks like this week, possibly he's going back to the pop-up powerbomb, which thank God, let him be Kevin Owens. But I do think he has the ability to transcend, doesn't need to be a face, doesn't need to be a heel. He's just a bad motherfucker.
Yeah.
And I think Kevin Owens can be that. And I think Triple H knows that. I think he knows. And so you send him out there and you have him fucking beat up on the Alpha Academy. And you're going to start having him do these things. And I think that while I wouldn't throw him into it right off the bat, I think there's other world title pictures that make more sense. I think in the next year and a half, WrestleMania, we're going into
36?
No, it's 38, I believe. By 39 or whatever, 40, Kevin Owens is back in the title picture, and he's maybe the biggest deal in professional wrestling.
There was an interview last week on the Macamania podcast where Alexa Bliss said that on paper, she thinks she has done enough to enter the WWE Hall of Fame. Tonight's final question is, has Alexa Bliss had a Hall of Fame worthy career at this point?
So I saw parts of the interview. I didn't watch the whole thing. And I saw Alexa talking about she feels like she's underutilized at this point in time. You even kind of told me you saw some things where she said she feels like she's almost boring right now. I get it. I get that. I get that right now there's not a lot with two titles and they're two different brands. There's not a lot for women to do in pro wrestling and WWE except either challenge the champion or now possibly go after the tag team. I still think they need mid-card titles. But right now, Alexa's obviously, I said, playing the role of Becky Lynch, and she's playing supporting cast.
Yeah.
She's an extra in the Bianca Belair and Bayley saga. That's what it is. So right now, there's a logjam as far as it's concerned in the women's division because contrary to what people want to say, oh, WWE, they don't have that many great women's wrestlers. Man, when I look at the roster, there's a lot. Mm-hmm. There's too many that Bayley's in line. You've got Asuka in line. You've got Rhea Ripley in line. You start looking, there's a logjam. It's not that Alexa
Charlotte
Bliss
comes back.
Yeah. It's not that Alexa Bliss is not worthy of being in that picture. It's just that right now, like literally only one person can challenge for that belt at a time when you're telling stories. You can have matches, triple threat, fatal four ways, but really to tell like a concrete story and what Bianca Belair needs is a nemesis. Alexa's not that nemesis. Bianca needs Bayley. Bayley is going to set Bianca up to be a huge star. That's what this is.
Yeah.
But as far as Hall of Fame is concerned, because that's what this question is, Alexa, she got a lot done in a relatively short amount of time. Mm-hmm. When you go and you look and you break down the statistics, and let's do that. Let's first be logical and just break down her statistics. 5 world titles on Alexa Bliss.
Wow.
3 Raw, 2 SmackDown. Mm-hmm. That's legit. 5 times. Most people don't get 1 to 2. She's got 5.
Yeah.
Okay. She was number 2, and I know this shit doesn't matter, but I think it's a good indicator of what you've done. Number 2 on the PWI top 100 women's wrestlers in 2018.
Okay.
So there's a point in time where she was like the second biggest deal in women's wrestling. I don't know who was number 1 that year. She's had 2 tag team title runs, which is even in women's wrestling. Those belts haven't been around a long time to have multiple runs, both with Nikki Cross, Nikki ASH.
Yeah.
She's won Money in the Bank, and she was the second women's wrestler to win the Triple Crown. Now, what's the Triple Crown, you ask?
Yes, I was thinking that.
I had to ask the same thing. I didn't know what that was. So what qualifies a woman's Triple Crown champion? What is it? Well, here's what I think it is, because I couldn't find a distinct definition, but here's what I think it is. I think you have to have won both women's championships, Raw and SmackDown, and the tag team titles.
Okay.
As far as men go, I know that usually there's a mid-card belt involved in there. Mm-hmm. But since there's not a mid-card, I think that for women's, it's both majors is how you become a Triple Crown champion. So just based on numbers alone, she's in.
Yeah. I didn't realize she had won that much.
Me either. I'm being real honest. I didn't realize she was a 5-time world champion. She's in. There's no question. I don't care if it was in a short amount of time, if it was a long amount of time. I guess you can ask the question. You have to ask this question.
Okay.
What if someone comes out of the gates firing like that? 5 world titles, all at the very beginning of your career. And then you just kind of shit the bed and have a lackluster second half of your career. Does that devalue those early accomplishments? Because it is scripted, right? If they were like, hey, we were super hot on you in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then later on, we just never really ever found anything else for you to do. Because I know we've always been kind of fond of the evil Alexa Bliss. A lot of people have voted that like worst character and talked bad. So do some of those negative things later in your career, do they devalue what you did early on? Can you deduct from your Hall of Fame career? I don't think so. I don't think you can take those things away.
I don't think so either.
And so the problem is, and I don't talk about wrestling being scripted a lot. It's not fun to break the kayfabe, but in a scripted sport where there's a Hall of Fame, basically you're written into the Hall of Fame. What it is it's how much did the company value you? That's what it is. And so how many women, because as we go farther into this, the company of WWE, there's more and more of these women that are reaching these achievements. So do we just put them all in, or do we have to start moving the goalpost? Do we have to start saying, well, 5 is pretty average now? That's a question I ask you, right? Go ahead. You were saying
I was going to say, I do think that you have to move the goalposts.
I believe you do too.
If not, then everybody is just going to be in.
It's just everybody.
And what do they say? If everybody's a winner, then nobody's a winner.
Exactly. I believe that too. So I look at like who's in right now, and you got Nikki Bella. And I said I was going to talk about Nikki Bella, but I'm going to talk about Nikki Bella. She's already in.
Yeah.
She's in the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
But really look at her career statistics.
What did she do?
2 Divas championships.
Oh,
that's it.
But wasn't she the longest reigning Diva champion?
Yeah, and I guess you can make the argument there.
Okay,
and the argument can be made that she had a huge impact on the revolution of women's wrestling.
I mean, she got me kind of into wrestling during that time.
Agreed.
And then also you have to talk about how many belts were available at that time.
Agree. All good points. I'm playing devil's advocate when I talk this. When I talk about this, I am playing devil's advocate. She ultimately worked her way into a favorable fan view. The shit she did on Total Divas was kind of revolutionary. The Total Bellas. There's so much more than just wrestling. But I guess we have to define what the WWE Hall of Fame is. Is it about your wrestling accolades or just everything you've done for the WWE? Because to be honest with you, I think it's interesting. Where does Nikki Bella rank in terms of all-time women's WWE wrestlers? Where do you put her? We'll get to that. When you look at the other women who are in the WWE Hall of Fame, you have Sharmell. She's in kind of as a manager. You have Tori Wilson. You have Jacqueline, Sunny, Ivory, both Bella twins, Brie and Nikki, Molly Holly, Beth Phoenix, Mae Young, Moolah, Lita, Chyna, Alundra Blaze, and Trish Stratus. Weird that Sable is not in the WWE Hall of Fame. Really weird to me. Maybe they're waiting for Brock and they put them in together. Maybe the whole significance of her being in Playboy and stuff, they don't ever want to reopen those doors. I don't know.
Yeah.
But when you look at that list, where does Nikki Bella fall? I want to do a video. I want to do a tier maker.
All right, let's do it.
Of the top WWE women's wrestlers of all time and see where I end up putting her. But I think you have to move the goalpost because right now we have the GOAT. The GOAT is still active. The Michael Jordan of women's pro wrestling is still active. Charlotte Flair, 12-time world champion.
All right.
Okay. So 5 doesn't feel as big of a deal when you put it against 12. Now it doesn't devalue the 5. It just, the goalpost is moving, right? Charlotte has 12 world, 2 NXT. That's 14 total.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot of world championships for someone who hasn't been in the business just an extremely long amount of time. I'll ask you a question. Tell me if these numbers are Hall of Fame numbers. Bayley, you putting her in? 3 world championships, 1 tag team.
Like just straight off like that?
Or does she need more?
So this is where I have to say something is that I think that championships do matter. However, I do feel like what you've added to that era of wrestling is a big thing. Because like we talk about Kevin Owens, he doesn't always have to be a champion in order to be a great wrestler.
That's interesting.
Right?
But if you go off, and I 100%.
I think a qualification for me is you need to have at least been a champion.
Interesting. I disagree with that. I think that almost anybody can become a champion once. You can fool me once.
Has everybody in wrestling been a champion?
No, but not everybody's in the Hall of Fame. I think that you need to be a multiple time champion to be in the Hall of Fame. I do believe that. And I do believe it matters because that's how many times the company felt like you could put them in a favorable position. That's what it means.
Sami Zayn never won a championship?
Intercontinental.
How many times?
A few, I think. I don't have the numbers offhand, but
okay.
But I don't know that Sami Zayn's a Hall of Fame wrestler.
That's what I was going to ask you next.
By no means. So Becky Lynch, 6-time world champion.
She's in.
She's won a Royal Rumble. I think that matters.
Yeah.
Okay, Sasha Banks, 6-time world champion, 3-time tag team champion.
I think she's in.
I do too. I think there's no question. The only thing that would hold her out is just WWE being mad at her.
Yeah.
Natalya, 1-time Divas champion, 1-time SmackDown champion, 1-time tag team champion. They've never had a ton of faith in her. She's great, but you can't open the doors for everybody.
So does she just get in because she's a heart?
I don't think so. To me, no, she's not a Hall of Fame wrestler. Natalya's not a Hall of Fame wrestler. She's one of those wrestlers, great, exceptional career, but the goalpost has to be somewhere because you can't just keep going like, well, Liv Morgan's a champion. She's in.
Yeah.
No, you like 1-time diva, okay, 1-time SmackDown, hasn't won the Raw championship, and a 1-time tag team champ. I don't know.
And I don't know that she's ever made an everlasting impact
on the business.
Yeah.
I mean, she has longevity, but sometimes longevity can be a little bit overrated as well. Like just because you've been there a long time, if you weren't significant enough in that long career to rack up these accomplishments, what does it really mean? I'll ask you this one. If Ronda Rousey's career ended today, if she's just done, she's just done, right? She decides, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm out. Does she get into the Hall of Fame with 1 SmackDown title, 1 Raw title? You said you only had to win 1. She won a Royal Rumble. She had a match at WrestleMania with Stephanie McMahon, Triple H, and The Rock. Do you put her in?
I'm going to say no.
Your foot is going to get in the camera if you keep sticking it up.
Sorry.
Yeah, right?
No, I don't think so because, I mean, I still see her as UFC Ronda, and maybe it's just because she hasn't been in wrestling long enough to me.
I'm with you.
Okay.
I don't think Ronda's Hall of Fame yet.
No.
I don't think you can't be a flash in the pan.
Eventually, but I think she needs to
longevity. She has to prove that she's here longer than just these short little come and goes.
I'm coming, I'm
because
leaving.
Basically she came in, was gifted the title, and then left.
Yeah.
Came back, gifted the title, and then left. So those numbers were a little bit skewed because of who she is.
Exactly.
And that's why I was asking, how much does longevity play into legacy? I don't think it's a factor. I don't think that you can go, well, this person was here forever. They deserve to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
I disagree with that. I'll ask you this question.
Okay.
Because of where we're at and because of the amount of talent and competition that exists today, does the Divas title hold less weight than the WWE Women's Championships? Because when you look back, it's frowned upon a little bit. People tend to make fun of, there was a point in time where they kind of called it the Models Championship, where some of the real wrestlers disappeared and you had just a lot of pretty faces. Now, a lot of those people, it was bullshit. That was not true. A lot of them were talented, but the knock on it at the time was that was kind of the thing. And so does the Divas title, does it hold less weight
than the current title we have now? I'm going to say no, because it had significance at that time. And so I don't think that you really can compare the two because it's changed so much since then.
But you've seen Kelly wrestle.
Was she a Divas champion?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah, there's no comparison. Okay, I take back what I said. The only Divas champion that I know is Nikki Bella, and I'm going to stand up for my girl until I die.
There were others. And I'm with you. Nikki Bella deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not arguing that. I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit. Last thing I'm going to go here.
Okay.
I'm going to give you numbers, and then you tell me, are they in or are they not
We're just going by numbers.
Just number. I want to give you numbers, and you tell me, does this person deserve to be, and this is a little bit of a gotcha, but does this person deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? And that is 1-time NXT title, 2-time Divas champion. Do you put them in? Based on everything else you've heard. Based on Charlotte's at 12. You think so?
Yeah.
Based on that?
Yeah.
But then Natalia's in.
Oh, well then fuck it.
That's Paige.
Paige won.
I don't think so.
Paige is 1-time NXT, 2 times Divas champion? Yeah.
Never won a WWE championship. Wasn't really around.
But there wasn't one there.
Yeah, I get it.
And the reason why I thought it was that, because they came from NXT and then they moved up and they did Divas, and then there wasn't anything else.
So while I will say, I do believe Paige deserves to be in the WWE Hall of Fame.
She has a movie.
It's not based on those numbers.
Okay.
Those numbers do not signify a career that's Hall of Fame worthy. Hers comes from the impact she had on the sport. She was more than those numbers. I do believe that. I do want to do, I want to do a tier maker list, and we'll do it in this next week. It'd just be a special thing we post where we rank top 10 women wrestlers from WWE of all time.
Okay.
My top 10.
Yeah.
Because I don't know much about Moolah and Mae Young and some of those people.
I only know Sunny because she got arrested.
Exactly. So it'll be my list, and it'll be probably a list that everybody tries to pick apart, but that's it. Other than that, that's all I've got for this week. You got anything else?
No, not right now.
Pretty fun episode. There was a lot going on.
Yeah.
This has been another episode of the CWC Wrestling Podcast. Make sure to tune in every week on either YouTube or Spotify, and please leave a comment on the episode. Also, make sure to follow us on TikTok if you don't already. Just search for Notorious Nerdy D. As always, I am the Notorious Nerdy D. That's Level Up Lauren. Ring the final bell.
Keep it rolling and hosted by Notorious Nerdy D. Don't show that you gon' find. Tune in cause it's online. Hit him with a figure 4 leg lock, power driver or clothesline. We bringing that heat like for show, but you should already know the casual wrestling community show. Let's go. Yeah, Notorious Nerdy D. Woo!